Welcome back to Make Good Choices Monday. I'm Becky Amio, and if you've ever been judged for spending too much money on a horse, you're going to want to hear my story about breaking down in tears in the middle of a restaurant being lectured by somebody that I hardly knew. So stick around, we'll get into it right now. I was in my sophomore or junior year of college when this happened. I was working for the first horse trainer I'd ever worked for, the first formal riding lessons I'd ever received in my life, and she had this big, beautiful bay mare that was bred super well. Bred to be a speed horse, bred to run. And by today's standards, that mare would probably sell for about $15,000 as a barrel racing prospect. However, she was priced at $5,000. Now, I wanted her. I was ready for the step-up horse. My first experience with horses, I had owned 2 purebred Arabians. Not that I didn't excel on those 2 purebred Arabians, but it's really difficult to go to the NASCAR race with a Volkswagen Bug. Not to put down a purebred Arabian, because like I said, I have won more on those 2 purebred Arabians than I have on any other horse in my life. However, I was ready for that step-up horse. I was ready for more speed. I was ready to be taken seriously when I walked into the arena. And I wanted this mare. And she was broke, safe, gentle. She was not patterned on barrels. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn how to train a barrel horse. I wanted to learn how to pattern a horse on barrels. And she was owned by this trainer. And this trainer allowed me to buy her. Now, $5,000 was a lot of money at the time to a quote-unquote starving college student. Now, I wasn't starving by any means, but I didn't make a whole lot of money cleaning pens and cleaning water barrels out for this horse trainer while I was in college. So I took a loan out to pay for her. My parents helped pay for part of her. My boyfriend helped pay for part of her. And I was so proud of her. I can remember the excitement of choosing the color that I was going to put her in and buying all of her tack and just how much fun that was, and being young and naive and fresh and not jaded by the horse industry in general. And this is before Facebook and before MySpace and all of that, and all of the ways that we have to share our horses these days and all the social media. So I had made the purchase. I had taken out the loan. I had begun riding her and working towards making her a barrel horse. And I had a friend that I worked with, and she was older than me. I can't honestly remember how much older she was than me. 20 years older than me. And she and we went riding with her and her boyfriend, and my boyfriend and we went riding together one afternoon, and then that evening it turned into we went out to supper together. And we sat down to eat, and we placed our orders, and we're sitting there at the table, and her boyfriend says to me, how's that mare bred? And I told him she was a granddaughter of Dash for Cash. She was by Calyx, and one of the winningest long distance quarter horses of all time. And on her bottom side, she was a daughter of Trippy Dip, I believe, if I remember correctly. And he said, but she doesn't know barrels yet. She hasn't been patterned. And I said, no, I'm going to do it. And I was really excited. And I was excited because somebody was asking me and taking interest in my horse. It's always fun when somebody asks you questions about your horse. And that's when I really light up. And that's what inspired me to even do this video is we had some friends over this week, and one of those people is a very good horseman in his own right, and he started asking me questions about how I train, and he does things a little differently than me, and he's a much larger man, and it was fun to compare and contrast and see him work with one of my horses. Side note. Anyway, so I was excited that he was asking me questions about my mare. And he said, well, that was too much money to pay for if she's not patterned on barrels yet. and it was kind of like a punch to the gut. Now, we're sitting at a restaurant, we've placed our order for our meal, and he's sitting across the table and he tells me this. And he said, "Oh, who's your sire again?" And I said, "Calyx." And he is one of the winningest of all time long distance quarter horse runners. And he dismissed that and said, I should have chose the sire or some sort of pedigree that was associated with short distance runners. And I need the speed short distance, not long distance. If I was looking at it from a pedigree standpoint or from a genetic standpoint. He went on to say how, she wasn't a good enough horse. She should have been patterned. I'd been taken advantage of. And I didn't know the guy really well, but I did know the trainer that I bought her from really well. And I really trusted this trainer. She was a friend. I worked for her for the last couple of years, and she gave me a lot of opportunities in this industry that I normally would not have had I have been in any other circumstance. And so, it was really, really tough to take this from this person. And he was a horseman in his own right. He had bred and raced some speed bred horses, and he was much, much older than me. He was much older than my friend. He was at least 40 years older than us. And so I'm sitting there at this table taking this, and I didn't have a response for him. I didn't have any answer. I just had to take what he was saying to me because I didn't know any better. And my boyfriend, he couldn't stick up for me, if you will, because he didn't know any better either. And my friend sitting there, she could have spoken up and said, "Hey, you know what, that's enough," pinched his leg under the table, I don't know. But this went on. I can't even remember all that he said to me. I can just remember how I felt in the moment. And this went on for the time that it took from the time that we placed our order until the time that our food came. And I didn't have much of an appetite. I can remember stirring my steak around in the sauce on the plate, and I had tears. I mean, I was crying at the table. This won't be the first story about, crying in front of everybody in a public setting, okay? So I have been there. This was before, this was before Facebook. This was before bullies jumped on and left a bunch of really crappy comments, in the comment section on a Facebook post, or made implications or insinuations or jump to conclusions about what a picture on Facebook was. And that's another thing that inspired this story. I saw a post on Facebook last weekend at this time where somebody had posted a picture proud and excited of their new purchase, and they were berated in 40 comments about how she was ruining her horse. And I thought that was just horrible that, somebody that was excited, brand new to the industry, and she was torn down by judgmental people that were drawing conclusions from a simple picture. And this guy was drawing these conclusions about this mare. Of course, he had a little bit more background knowledge. He knew that she was, I think she was about an 8-year-old mare when I bought her. He knew her pedigree. He knew she hadn't been patterned yet. He knew what he had paid for horses in his experience. But again, essentially a first-time horse buyer looking for a prospect, and it's the hard knocks you take when you get into the horse industry, and it's part of the learning experience. So that being said, we left the restaurant that night. I don't recall if I ever talked to him again, but I know I had to go to work with my friend the next morning, and I could tell she was uncomfortable by the whole experience. She never apologized for what he did, but she kind of alluded to how uncomfortable that experience was. And eventually I ended up quitting that job at that local cafe where I worked with her, and finished going through college, and I moved away, and I lost track of her because in those days, you know, cell phones have just come out and people move, and, you know, you lose track of people. So I don't know what she's up to now. That mare, I wish I had a good I got him story, or I had the last laugh story. That mare, she was the type of horse that got hurt all the time. I could load her up in the trailer to go to the barrel race, and she would do something stupid in the trailer and hurt herself on the way to the barrel race. And when we got to the barrel race, there'd be blood coming out of a leg, and we'd have to load her back up and haul to a vet to have her stitched up. That was the kind of horse that she was. I ended up breeding her twice. I got 2 nice colts out of her. I sold one. The other one, I went on and competed for the AQHA World Show twice on. Competed there once and placed in the top 15 in pole bending. So it wasn't at all a loss. And I ended up selling that mare, back in about, I think it was 2006 or so, I sold her. So I'd owned her for about 5 years. However, one of the Arabian horses that I had at the same time as her, when I decided to breed her, I started concentrating more on that purebred Arabian mare, and I went on to win more than I have ever won in my life on that purebred Arabian mare. More saddles, more buckles, made arena records on her. She's the only purebred Arabian mare to ever Hall of Fame in the California Gymkhana Association. And, you know, it all worked out the way it was supposed to. And I can tell you that this was a really painful memory to think about. And before I get ready to do these videos, I try to write a narrative and write all my feelings and put some chronological order to these videos before I share them with you guys. And it was really painful to think about all the surrounding feelings and emotions and what was going on in my life when I had this horse and what I learned from it. And, you know, I did learn a little bit on how to start a barrel horse with this mare, and I learned a lot about temperament and a lot about, you know, the disposition and quality and, you know, just care and how to deal with vet bills, for lack of a better explanation. But, you know, you guys, if if anybody is giving you a hard time for, you know, the amount of money that you spend on your horse, you know, one thing I joke about it, well, at least it's not meth, at least it's not crack. It could be, you know, it could be a lot worse. But really, you know, if you feel in your heart and in your gut that it's something that you want to work at and it's something that you believe in, by all means, you know, work at it, work towards it, learn, you know, educate yourself, try really hard, go all in, because this was a big risk. That amount of money was a big risk to me. It wasn't the first big risk I'd ever taken, but it was the biggest risk financially I'd ever taken. And, you know, since then I've, you know, that's nothing compared to some of the risks I've taken, you know, in the last 20 years. I mean, heck, I've been telling you stories about them. So that all being said, you know, be kind to one another, be nice to each other on Facebook, be nice to each other when you see posts, say something positive, because you don't know what that horse means to that person. You know, we put a lot of time into our horses. We put a lot of time into this hobby or this career that we have chosen. And you don't know what that horse represents to that person. And just, you know, be nice to each other. Make good choices. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I hope you have a great Monday. Tune in tomorrow for Training Tip Tuesday, because I have a great video in store for tomorrow. I'm really excited for this one. It's part 2 of last week's video, and you know, man, I'm just so excited to see the advancement of this colt that I'm working on. So have a good one, and I hope you guys make good choices. Thanks for watching.